Welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey, he's Jacob, and we're a Minnesota Sports Podcast. If you're a Minnesota sports fan, especially a Minnesota Vikings fan, please click the like button on this video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do so as well. And today we're talking Minnesota Vikings because they made an impact trade at the trade deadline here, trading for Lions tight end TJ Hockenson, trading a second round pick in this upcoming draft, a third round pick in the 2024 draft, and in return you get Hockenson, a fourth round pick in the 23 draft, as well as a conditional pick in the 2024 draft. I mean, what do you make of this, Liberta? This is definitely an interesting trade. I mean, definitely a surprise, I think, for most Vikings fans trading for a tight end, especially a tight end of this caliber. I know there's been people talking about potentially Darren Waller, trade ideas for the Vikings. So obviously Hawkinson's not quite on Waller's level, but I'd say he's right there in towards the top five for tight ends in this league. What do you make of this trade and just how aggressive the Vikings were at the deadline today?
Yeah, I like this a lot. This is a really splashy move by Kwesi, especially to do something like this in the division. That's pretty unprecedented for GMs, not only in this league, but in professional sports, really to trade with close rivals. So I think that says something about his confidence and being able to do the right thing and push the right buttons, make the right moves, and get the better end of a trade. So I like that confidence. And then I also like the fact that we got a talented player in Hockenson. I really think he'd be available. He wasn't really on my radar as far as guys that could be acquired at the trade deadline, but here we are, a 25-year-old stud. He's former top 10 pick, so there's a lot to like here. And he's a guy that I think will fit nicely in a spot that we desperately needed to fill. Now with Irv Smith going on the IR, he's going to be out 8 to 10 weeks, according to Adam Schefter. So that literally leaves us with Johnny Munt. So that's not a whole lot there, because even Ben Elfson's on IR, run blocking ace there. So I would say that this is a great move. I think there have been a lot of talk out there, but like Sicky, but now I think we got a much better tight end, even much younger as well. And I think this guy's gonna be great. I think the only question out there that I have is like, how quickly can he get acclimated to the offense? Because as I just got done saying, I guess that we have this big hole at tight end, not a lot of depth there. So like, how quick can he get up to speed with the playbook and everything we like to do as far as the schemes go, and how quick can he start contributing for Kirk? Because honestly, Kirk with good tight ends, like he's had history there where he'll utilize them like kind of I would say somewhat, I wouldn't say excessively. I would say in a decent volume, I guess, especially in red zone situations. Like I know Rudolph had some seasons where he caught a lot of touchdowns from Kirk, maybe not quite the between the 20s numbers, but in the red zone he was there, and then kind of transitioned to a Thielen thing. But early in Kirk's career, going back to his Washington days, I know Jordan Reed certainly had some good seasons with him, so maybe this is a similar case. And for Hockenson to get out of Detroit and into a more steady, stable organization, especially in an offense where I think he'll be, I would argue now he might be the second best like playmaker as far as like pass catchers goes. So I think he could see his fair share of volume. And I think that was his problem in Detroit, was when like guys like Swift and St. Brown and Burge, like those guys were taking a lot of the share there as far as making plays. So he kind of faded. He's a good blocker though, don't get me wrong. But in the games when like St. Brown is hurt or Swift is out and they're using the pass game a little bit more, like Hockenson feasted. Like there was a game earlier this year, he went for like 8 catches, 170 yards, and a couple touchdowns. Like he has that in him. So like that's really exciting to add to the offense. It's just another guy out there that can make plays for Kirk and just load up this offense in a year where we're 6-1 and have a real opportunity here and make some noise in the NFC. So overall, yeah, I guess goes. I think you can tell that I'm really enjoying this move. So kind of wondering where you're at with this, Bailey.
Yeah, I love the move as well. I think super smart move by Kwesi. Like you mentioned, it's kind of never seen in professional sports where a GM will trade in his own division with division rivals. But at the same time, I don't really view the Lions as division rivals. I mean, they're always bad for the most part. We don't have this love-hate relationship, or hate, if you will, relationship with the Lions like we do with the Packers or even maybe the Bears. And I think the Lions are just in a constant state of a disaster too. Like I think they were in a rebuild currently, but it seems like they're almost stripping it down again, maybe to rebuild again, because I think Dan Campbell's going to get fired. So the Lions are a disaster. There's no question about that. But yeah, I love the trade. Like you mentioned, I think he probably is the second best receiving option on this team. Not to take anything away from Adam Thielen or KJ Osborne and how successful he's been over the last couple of years, but just taking a little extra pressure off of Justin Jefferson as well. It's just another guy that defenses have to account for. because I don't think Irv Smith truly got the respect that a TJ Hockenson would, obviously. Um, that is kind of the other end of the deal, too. Obviously, it's a bummer that Irv Smith's going to be down for a while, potentially the rest of the regular season, with the Vikings putting him on IR. But that's kind of been the story with him, is just injury after injury. And then when he was healthy this year, he really wasn't making plays or taking full advantage of his opportunities. So that was a bummer to see. It could potentially be the end of his career as a Viking. I mean, he could come back for playoff games, but then after this season, that could be it. So, but yeah, it's a nice deal. Hawkinson's got an extra year of team control, as he's got that 5th-year option next year, which it accounts for like $9 million roughly, I think, against the cap. So I could see the Vikings trying to extend him this offseason. So yeah, just adding another good young player to this core of, a team that's 6-1, hasn't looked amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but continues to find ways to win games. And I don't know, I'm pumped. I'm glad we're leaning into the offense even more. I was hoping maybe for a defensive trade today as well, but on the defensive side of the ball, we're pretty healthy, minus Dalvin Tomlinson's calf injury. So that's obviously exciting. And yeah, so I guess we'll kind of transition in. Does this kind of prove that they're ready to contend? Do you feel that this is an all-in move to contend this year with the NFC being down? I guess how exactly are you feeling about how this move translates to the rest of the season?
Yeah, this feels like an all-in move, and that the organization feels like they can make a push this year to get through the NFC and maybe return to the conference championship game that we were in 5 years ago, and potentially a Super Bowl. So I think the team, the organization feels great with where we're at. I'm personally not quite convinced yet. Like, I feel like they think that, but I don't. I kind of want to have. I think week one was kind of a signature win, but now that the Packers have kind of looked pretty shaky for now over 8 games,
Hmm.
I truthfully feel like there's still something to be proven here. I think we've taken care of business in games that we should win. So, like, that's great. I know we
Yep.
certainly left a lot to be desired in Philly week 2 on Monday Night Football. Like, that's our biggest competition, this NFC, and we just didn't do it that night. So
Hmm.
that leaves me with a little pause and little leaves me in a cautiously optimistic state, and kind of just waiting and seeing what happens. I know we still got another game that we should be uh, maybe not heavily favored in, but healthily favored in against
Right.
the Commanders. But then after that, you go to Buffalo. That's as hard as it gets in this in the NFL this year. I think that's as talented as you're going to find, and playing Josh Allen as dynamic as anybody. So like
Yep.
that'll be a test on its own. But even more so, I think it's probably coming home after that and playing Dallas at home in the 325 primetime slate on CBS. I think that's going to say a lot about this team, where we're at as far as probably our some of our biggest competition in the NFC with the Cowboys. I'd say they're up there along Philly's definitely number one. And then I'd say other teams, like the Niners are out there, but we don't play the Niners this year. So I think the Dallas game is certainly one to circle and see how we look, because like I think that could tell us a lot about our chances in this NFC. So I don't know, where does this leave you at?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, when you look across the landscape of the NFC, obviously you got the Eagles. I mean, they're hands down the best team. Just looking offense, defense, the whole unit. I mean,
Mhm.
there's very solid. Yeah, that Bills game coming up on the schedule is obviously looking pretty bleak. I mean, I just have a
Yeah,
hard time envisioning us really even keeping that game close, just because I don't know how we're going to defend that team.
no,
Um, Josh Allen. I mean, we couldn't contain Kyler Murray, so I doubt we're going to contain Josh Allen and Stephon
Stephon might
Diggs.
have
I
a
mean,
day, just like
who's
Hop did.
who's going to cover Diggs? I would probably vote Dancer, but he got torched by Hopkins. So, Pat Pete's had a good year, but at the same time, he's getting up there in age. So
Play a lot of that
that'll
shell coverage. He'll be thinking and dunking to Diggs all day long for 10, 15
exactly
yards.
death by 1,000 cuts. But
Yeah.
so that'll be tough. And you mentioned that Cowboys game. I think that's a true litmus test. It's a home game against a good NFC team. Dallas has a really good defense this year. I still think their offense leaves a little to be desired, but that
Hmm.
defense is really strong.
Hmm.
And that'll be a tough test at home against a team that's definitely going to be a playoff team, I would imagine. So, yeah. And then the rest of the schedule doesn't look terribly daunting. I mean, you got the Patriots at home. The Patriots are hit or miss, every week. You still got road games with the Lions, Bears, Packers. So I mean, I'm not horribly concerned. The nice part about this start is they're 6-1. If they go 6-4, which is playing 2 games above 500 the rest of the way, they're going to win 12 games this season. So obviously that's super good, and that hopefully positions you for a top 2 seed in this conference, which means you don't get the first round bye, but at the same time you could play home games up until the NFC Championship game. So that would be important too. Then, I think making a move like this just bolsters that potential too. If Jefferson has to miss a couple games due to injury, hopefully he doesn't. Then you got TJ Hockenson along with Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and Dalvin Cook stayed healthy up to this point. So that's been nice to have too. So we got plenty of weapons, and this just adds to the depth of the weapons a little bit. So I'm glad that they're kind of realizing that this is an opportune time to strike, given that how bad the NFC is with the Packers, Bucks, and Rams all being down right now. And even San Fran, I mean, they're a scary team in my eyes just because of how they dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. But they're still 500 right now. So and Garoppolo is very shaky. So I mean, other than Philly, I'm not really scared of any of these NFC teams. I guess we'll see how the Dallas game goes, but this was a great time to strike for the Vikings, and I'm glad that they're taking advantage of this window now because you never know what next year, the couple of years down the road is going to look like. You never know if you're going to be in this position again. So I like that they're being aggressive, and hopefully it turns out well for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, now that you've got all these games in hand here, or all these games won so far to this point on the schedule, it makes your life a lot easier coming down the
Yeah.
stretch, especially when we get to a point after we play that Buffalo game in a couple weeks. We got 2 road games here in a row. After that, we're going to be playing home games every week, except for going to Detroit once at the beginning of December until we go to Lambeau. I think it's on New Year's. So, we're going to be playing at home every week for a month and a half outside of one trip to Detroit, who right now is tied. I think they might actually have the worst record in the NFL. So
I think they do.
You like your chances because this is a good home team. We believe we have the best record at home, or one of the best since US Bank Stadium opened. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us to win a lot of games, really solidify ourselves as an NFC contender up there. Hopefully at the 2 spot, because I'd love to say we could climb up to number 1, but Philly, truthfully, I think I'd go as far to say, this is maybe another conversation, but I'd go as far to say that there's a probably 25, probably 30, I'll say 30% chance that they run the table and they go undefeated. They win all 17 games. As I'm looking at their schedule, I don't see where they lose. They go to Dallas, sure, that's gonna be tough. Giants, I don't really know what they are. I think they're solid, but I don't think they're as good as their record would indicate. And I know some people might say that about the Vikings, but the rest of their schedule, man, I'm just not. I can't be yep, they're gonna run into trouble there.
Maybe Green Bay puts up a fight against them or something, but Green Bay looks bad.
Yeah. It's one of those Sunday night games at Philly. That's going to be a madhouse. So, there's just not a lot of losses on the Eagles' schedule. So, probably kind of locked into that 2 spot ideally. So, yeah, I don't know. I like our chances. But, yeah, I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit, be cautiously optimistic until we play some of these good teams of 2022 with the Bills and the Cowboys. After that, then you come back to me and I'll say if I'm feeling good about this or not. But if we play pretty competitively in those games, I'd like to win the Dallas one since that is at home. Yep. Then I'm gonna feel great about our chances of making some noise and maybe reappearing in the NFC Championship game for the first time in 5 years. And it feels like one of those times where the Vikings they make the NFC Championship game probably every 5-10 years. So maybe this is our time. That's why, like you said, we got to take advantage of a season like we're having where we're 6-1. Those opportunities don't come around all the time. So
exactly. And I think the thing we have to remember too is this is a team that gets big leads weekly and then blows those big leads and ends up being down and then kind of has to claw back, which I mean, it's kind of a good thing they figure out how to win games, but at the same time,
I don't know if they'll lose against the good teams.
Exactly. If you can't put a team away, the good teams will make you pay. So obviously we'll see how that goes down the stretch as well. Kirk Cousins, he's never had a start like this in his career, or record-wise, even though he's not playing at his best, I don't think. No. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he improves, hopefully, for the rest of the season, because if he gets better, then this team gets even better. So that's something to watch, too. But do you have any other final thoughts before we take off here?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how KOC deploys Hockenson. I think he's a very creative play caller, so I think he's definitely probably got imagination about what that's going to look like already. And I don't think they'd have made this trade, and they must value the tight end more than people give him credit for. Because I know, Rams didn't utilize the tight end a lot, so I think a lot of people thought the Vikings might not either. But now with Irv Smith out, but bringing in a really high-profile guy rather than just some waiver wire claim or some really low-end blocker or something out there, we brought in a pretty blue chip player. So I would say there's definitely some plans there, and I'm excited to see what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. It's exciting to give Kevin O'Connell an offensive mind, all these different weapons, and just see what he can do with them. I think like the
Yeah.
run game's been improving lately, so that's been good to see. Obviously, Jefferson's numbers are monstrous. I'd like to see his touchdowns go up, however, but
I don't know, 2 at this point.
yeah,
Like you said during the game last week, that's unacceptable.
it is. Like, I mean, target him in the red zone more, Kirk. But anyways, that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please feel free to click the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you make of this TJ Hockenson trade? Do you appreciate the Vikings being aggressive at the trade deadline and positioning themselves, hopefully, for a playoff run? And any other thoughts you might have on the Vikings, TJ Hockenson, and just the squad moving forward. So until next time, thanks for watching.